Oh. One second, folks. Oh, there's two. Can I? Shit. Genuinely shit. Edit. Please. Fuck. No. I fucked up bad. Okay, I got this one. The other one had I accidentally ended, which was a shame. I accidentally ended. But we got a new one. We got a new one, folks. We got a new one. I made specifically the same thumbnail. Maybe it's just... Okay. Whoops. Okay, I accidentally closed the game theory tab. Fuck. Okay. Everything's gone downhill for me refreshing one goddamn page. Game theory. Fuck. I fucked up bad, boys. I fucked up bad. I didn't mean to. But I did it. Okay, we finished the Pokemon trilogy. Finished the trilogy. Now we're on Star Fox. Do a barrel roll. Okay, everyone.
Nothing more powerful than you, making your thing happen. Really going for it. Doing business.
Nintendo has been part of the cover-up since 1993, and we're more stupider as a result. This week, the truth. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory. We didn't invent the word truthiness, but by golly gosh, we believe in it. Have you ever played Star Fox? Chances are it's made you dumber. The game is just one big lie. It all boils down to one thing. Team Star Fox sucks at flying. Let's look at the facts.
Do a barrel roll!
Peppy Hare tells us in the closing minutes of the first level, and like obedience, we follow his orders, pressing Z or R twice, joyfully ship spin like a top, deflecting all incoming lasers, and so we barrel roll our way through the Lilat system, past Starwolf on Fortuna, past Andross on Venom. So impressed were we with this little catchphrase, the double helix pattern. Imagine a plane following the path of one helical strand, or maybe you've ridden a roller coaster with a corkscrew, it's the same thing. That is the true meaning of a barrel roll. If there's another plane doing a complementary helix, it becomes a rolling scissor. The purpose of a real barrel roll is to slow the relative forward motion of the plane without changing direction, causing an attacker in the rear to fly ahead, which is called overshooting. The aileron roll, meanwhile, is exactly like in the game. The plane rotates around its longitudinal axis without leaving its linear path. In combat situations, it's useless. So here we are. We've been made to look like fools. Our prank calls to C-SPAN were for naught.
In Iraq, everyone was getting barrel rolled.
Oh, sure, I guess do a barrel roll is a lot more catchy than do an aileron roll. But unless this show miraculously gets thousands more viewers, many young gamers will grow up to be the laughingstock of their aviation schools. Tragic. But the lies don't stop there. During the dogfight missions, you have the ability to escape an attacker by performing this move. The game humiliates our intelligence by naming it a U-turn. The maneuver is actually called an Immelman turn, where a pilot makes a half loop upwards followed by a half roll, resulting in the plane being above the attacker and headed in the opposite direction. This is not to be confused with the split S, which is basically the downward equivalent of the Immelman. Now, players of Star Fox, myself included, would think that this U-turn would make an excellent tactical move considering it works so well when Wolf, Leon, and Pigma refuse to get off our asses, but frankly, it's not. The Immelman turn results in a considerable amount of speed loss, making a plane an easy target for an air-to-air missile. Even the more advanced half-Cuban 8, a speed-increasing maneuver that takes the Immelman and ends it with a nose dip back to the plane's original altitude, doesn't solve the problem. So now we have a second example that we're controlling a flying team with zero understanding of the basic maneuvers and how to use them properly. They're doing stuff that in a normal dogfight would get them killed. Star Fox seems to be a game of high-speed, high-intensity spaceflight, but that's just what they want you to think. Look at this. It's the last of the game's 3 advanced moves. The somersault, which in real life is just called a loop. The first rule of Air Combat 101 is to avoid movements in a purely horizontal or vertical plane of motion so as to disorient an attacker. Star Fox's quote-unquote strategic somersault ignores all that. But taking it further, one of the basic concepts of mid-air dogfighting is the trading of potential energy, or in this case altitude, with kinetic energy, or airspeed. I'll try to explain. As a plane climbs higher, it's fighting against gravity, exchanging some of its kinetic airspeed energy for potential height energy. When a pilot decides to descend, he's working with gravity, thus increasing his airspeed or kinetic energy at a faster rate. As a result of this energy transfer, a fighter jet's movement takes place not in a three-dimensional sphere where any movement is equally likely, but rather inside what's called a tactical egg, where upward and downward movements are affected by these gravitational principles. How's all this relate to Star Fox? Look at the loop. It's a perfect circle. If you don't believe me, time it. The loop takes 3 seconds, exactly 1.5 seconds going up and coming down, which means that they're totally ignoring the physical principles of the tactical egg. The only explanation for this would be that they're going at an incredibly slow speed and braking while descending in the second half of the loop. In other words, they're not flying for their lives. They're not pushing the limits of their machine. Quite the contrary, it's practically a leisure flight. So let's review. No one on the Star Fox team knows the difference between an aileron roll and a barrel roll, despite it being one of the first moves taught in basic aerobatics courses. The Immelman turn, which is the fanciest move in their repertoire and the one that they rely on in open-air combat, realistically just makes a plane an easier target. And the fact that the loop ignores basic principles of gravity shows that they're in no big hurry. The saddest truth of all, though, is that these 3 moves are all reserved for air shows. Definitely not during life or death dogfights. Nintendo's Space Aces are really just a bunch of flight school rejects. But is it really all that surprising? I mean, would actual pilots want this guy as part of their team?
Whoa! Help me!
I didn't think so. Do an aileron roll. Yeah, that's never catching on. Can't say I didn't try, though. Anyway, it's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Final Fantasy.
Stick your derrick in a hole and roll out the barrels, cause we're getting crude. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory. Today's episode will probably be, but is not meant to be, my most controversial one to date as we cover hot-button topics in international politics framed against gaming's most hot-button title. So cram yourselves into your Speedo because we're taking a dip in the life stream. What can be said about Final Fantasy VII that hasn't already been beaten to death 100 times over by countless fan sites? Nothing. Good, done, roll credits. But seriously, no one ever really looks at how much fantasy is actually in the Final Fantasy games, and you may be surprised by how realistic the 7th installment actually is. For the uninitiated, here's what you need to know. Lifestream in the game is spirit energy, the soul of the planet, existing underground in a form that looks a whole lot like my computer's default screensaver. Without getting too detailed, it's basically a collection of souls from all plants and animals that have lived and died on the planet. Mako is the name given to Lifestream in its liquid form, and it contains huge amounts of concentrated energy that a company named Shinra learned to harvest and convert into electricity. Shinra then gained a monopoly over this technique and basically took over the world, politically and economically, by being the sole provider of the planet's power. That's right, a world-dominating utility company. And they don't even own the waterworks. Evil power companies. Oh, Square, you and your imagination. Or not. Lifestream, an underground source of energy made from dead plants and animals, sounds a whole lot like fossil fuels to me. Coal, gas, and petroleum, which are found underground and are made from compressed plant and animal matter, accounting for around 86% of the world's total energy needs. And of those, none is more precious than oil, black gold, Texas tea, which handles 1/3 of the world's energy consumption, topping 50% in some regions. Imagine, if you will, the following. Oil companies suddenly withholding their supplies. A world without oil. We would be crippled as cars would rust with empty gas tanks along the streets, and the 50,000 planes in the air each day would be grounded, ceasing all trade and shipping. Products made from oil, which includes everything from makeup to medicine and anything plastic, would be no more. Food wouldn't make it into the cities, and the world would grow dark as there would be no means to transport coal, whose burning produces 40% of the world's electricity. In short, a world in chaos. It's an interesting hypothetical scenario, but in the game, Shinra has complete political domination, and real-world electric companies aren't going to go and usurp the government anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that governments can't usurp the power companies. Some reports say that only 7% of the world's estimated oil and gas reserves are held by private companies, leaving over 90% to companies owned and operated by the governments of their respective nations. Of the top 20 oil-producing companies, 16 are controlled by national governments, including the world's most valuable company, Saudi Aramco, with an estimated value between $2.2 and $7 trillion. You imagine if a group of these oil-rich countries got together in an alliance to dictate who got the oil? Well, you don't have to, because that organization exists. It's called OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. The 10 largest oil companies in the world are all members. And if they don't like your country, they don't have to sell to you. That's what happened in 1973 when the quote-unquote oil weapon was first used against the US. Angered by the Western world's support of Israel, the Arab nations of OPEC formed a separate group to put the squeeze on us, making gas prices spike from, hold on to your hats, 38 cents to 55 cents per gallon. Watch out! But seriously, a big deal at the time. It caused a nationwide panic in gas rationing, so much so that Oregon had to cancel the hanging of Christmas lights. Now that's desperation. In other words, OPEC acts as a cartel, a group of competing companies working together to fix prices, marketing, and production on a global scale. And here's the other thing. You know how Shinra formed its own cities like Midgar, built its own military, and used its tremendous wealth to pay for experiments with genetics? Well, that's not a fantasy either. Saudi Aramco has built multiple compounds where its employees live. Some are able to hold up to 11,000 residents. And with nearly half of Iran's national budget coming solely from oil and gas revenue, any soldier or scientific discovery coming from the country belongs to some extent to the oil company. So as Uncle Ben said, with great petrol comes great responsibility. In short, I'm not a political person at all, absorbed in my rap